right, it's Jacob. We'll get going in a couple minutes, just sorting out a couple things on the computer.
No problem, Jacob. Thanks.
I'm back.
Okay, Brian, Julie was just about to call you, so I will, we'll get her back in the room, and then we'll start.
Okay, I'm having trouble. I'm having troubles. I don't have a landline, and my for some reason my cell phone is just it goes so far and it just goes away, and it's fully charged. So I don't know how long I'll be with you.
Okay, well, I think we pretty light stuff, so we'll try to get everything done that we can. Okay, Brian's
I'll
back.
just.
All right. So it's 4:02. 4:02. I will call this meeting to order. Members present: myself, Jacob Pride, Chair; Supervisor Levenheim, Vice Chair; Supervisor Brian Barrett. We also have our solicitor Ron Karasak and our engineer John Tressler and office manager Julia Heilica. From the public, there's no one on Zoom, but we do have Lynn Schwartz here. Okay. We don't have minutes to consider today. That'll be at our regular meeting. Does anybody have any comments on things included or not included on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We don't have any unfinished business, public hearings, or plans to act on. Our first order of business is considering resolution number 484, the revised application for the DCED LSA grant. That's in regards to Marshall Falls. It's a very minor change. It just reflects the correct amount that we're asking for, which is about $20,000 less than the original resolution. Right, Julia?
That is correct. We got an email from Mary Himmelberger saying that for the DCED LSA grant, we could not use the $20,000 land acquisition that we had for the GTRP, which is why the amount has been reduced.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, the letter that I sent as a follow-up, does that cover this, or do we need to do another letter?
Your letter is good.
It covers this number.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Do I hear a motion on resolution 484?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Levin. Second by
I'll
Mr.
second
Barrett.
that motion.
Perfect. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next up is considering the purchase of a 36-inch printer. This is at the recommendation of the Monroe County Planning Commission. I asked them about which large format printer would be best. This enables us to print zoning maps or plans should people send them digitally. It'll make things much easier in-house, and it's something we budgeted for last year. It comes out to $5,995. Obviously, you can't calculate shipping before we order it, but it comes in under the $8,000 we had thought that it would. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Jacob, I do have one.
Go ahead.
What brand is it, and who we purchasing it from?
Oh, it's an HP design jet. So it'd be from HP directly, so at cost.
Got it. Okay.
And just to confirm, this will also allow us to scan plans that
correct.
into the township, so we'll be able to continue to digitize our records that we have here.
Correct. Yeah, so it's a multi-function device. So you have the scanning and the printing, and it will work in services mobile and desktop or laptop computers. So it's a pretty solid printer. It's nice that it will cover, both printing and scanning, because Julia mentioned, for scan text, this means we won't have to send out as many things and save us money there. And it'll be nice because anytime someone wants to come request a zoning map or something like that, and if we have it, we can always print that. Or if it fulfills, like a right-to-know request and someone wants it on paper, they can pay the fee at our cost to get it.
I'll make a motion we approve purchase.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Yep. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Levenheim and second by Mr. Barrett. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 The next item up is C, consider appointing Kenneth Wolf, alternate SEO. Julia can speak more to that.
Sure. Our current SEO, Scott Brown, has recommended that the board take this step in an effort to make sure, as Ken is learning the trade of being an SEO, he has the authority to be on site and make those decisions. This is not a suggestion to replace Hanover at this time. Scott would remain our first and primary, Jake Schrey would be one alternate, and Ken would be appointed as a second alternate.
I think we should point out for anybody listening to that, SEO is a sewer enforcement officer.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
I just a word of maybe caution. Ken's pretty busy, as we all know, and it's good that Scott's going to remain as primary. So I just want to put my 2 cents in on that one. That's it. That's all.
I agree. Good point. Okay. Well, I'll move that we appoint Ken Wolf as our alternate sewage enforcement officer. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Levenheim. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Didn't hear Brian's vote?
Sorry, Brian. Julia didn't catch your vote.
Oh, yes.
Okay, cool. Next is discussing the false alarm ordinance. This is a draft that Julia had sent to us a couple of, I don't know, probably more than a few weeks ago. Something that was requested by the fire companies. She did the work on this, so you can speak to that.
Sure. What is in front of you right now is we took the upper Mount Bethel ordinance as a draft and tweaked it a little bit according to what I heard back from the fire companies. You'll see on the draft that you have anything that's highlighted is up for discussion and suggestions at this time. I did put in ideas that you can use, but please feel free to change whatever you want. I did decide to make the fees done by resolution, so if you do feel in the future you ever need to change them, it's a matter of changing the resolution instead of changing the ordinance.
When you said they gave positive feedback, so that's, they did request it initially, at least Marshall's Creek did, and the others added their commentary, I suppose.
Yeah, I spoke with all of the chiefs of our 3 departments that service us, and they all seemed in favor of this. As they were all sent it out and also suggested to be here if they wanted to. They're not here, so I'm assuming that all is well. But if the board wants, the next step in this process would be to make sure you're okay with everything that is highlighted in the ordinance, and then set us in motion for advertising and eventual adoption.
So the green and the blue are, do the colors mean something here, or just true, false alarm, the calendar month?
I think the colors are just there to be colored.
Okay.
Yeah, the green references time, the blue references funds,
Okay.
and any yellow is dates and
The fire company pretty much agrees with the fees and everything?
Yeah, I did reach out to all of them, asking them what they thought. Should be good to go.
And I was just going to ask, so, because we'll obviously be taking in money on this, I would assume that based on what is received by us, like we should keep some administrative function of it, but also return it to the fire companies that had spent the extra time responding to these, correct?
In the end, that would be up to the board's decision. With this ordinance being passed as it is, it would be a zoning matter, so Ken will be the one administering violation letters, and anyone who has to pay these funds will be sent to the township.
Right.
At that point, if you wanted to turn around and, split the funds back to the fire company, we are allowed to donate to them if they serve in their area.
Right, and I also think we should probably just double check, because Delaware Water Gap does service a portion of us. I don't know if you talked to Howard Ike.
I believe we conversed over email and over the phone.
Oh, okay, cool.
Jacob, Brian, do we know approximately how many false alarms are reported, or actually not so much reported, but turnout is involved? And the reason I say that is, again, years ago when I was active with the Shawnee Fire Company, there were quite a few of them. And there were always the nuisance ones. And I know that's probably what's triggering this, because we have several of them now. But so many come in and they're just, I won't say ignored, but there's no response. Okay, chief makes a decision, no, we're not rolling. And I just was curious as to that. And I don't think that would factor in. It's I guess, the way you explained it, Jacob and Julia, it's a cost incurred.
Well, I'm not sure I understand you, Brian. In this one, the chief makes these decisions as well.
Right.
Correct?
Well, the chief is the only one that makes the decision.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, he could say yay or nay. You get a call that comes in, and it's one of these false alarm situations, and you know damn well that it's not worth a response for one reason or another, experience, if you will, with the chiefs. And so that's a false alarm reported, but it's not anything that cost money, and I didn't think that wouldn't be a factor in our reimbursements, correct?
No, I would think that just based on them having to, because I mean they have to verify these things and do the work too. So I would think that we probably need to spend a couple more minutes on figuring out exactly what we do with the money, because obviously it's not like it's ours, like it's going to go towards the fire companies. I would think that, since we're passing it, it is to target those nuisances, whether or not there's a response. Certainly, because I think after a while, I think the one example was they already had 60 or so calls from one property in the township, and at a certain point they had just stopped going for each one, because it's like, why do they need to waste that time? But I think that in some way we should probably just roll it into the, same formula based on, how many calls they get or something like that.
I agree. And then, Jacob, what we would simply need then is from the fire companies themselves is how many people, how many pieces of equipment rolled, how many men and women responded, and the length. Hopefully that'll be, we have to incorporate that, and that's a report that has to be done by the chief. There's no way we could know. Yes.
They shouldn't benefit from the fees that are collected for false alarms. If at some point want to give that to them as a gift from the township for one reason or whatever we call it, it's fine. But to me, it's in the same category of the reason, for instance, radar has never been approved for municipalities in Pennsylvania. It's just the worry that, well, it's just too easy an income source, and that's why it's restricted to the state police. And I think you just want to guard against that here.
Well, yeah, I agree. That's why I think it should be based upon, some combination of administration and real time and real cost. But we also have to be careful, because we can't let it become, great for us financially either. Like, it has to be essentially neutral, unless we make more investments in something to prevent these false alarms and stuff like that. But we can get into that. But I think it sounds like everybody is okay with moving forward toward adoption, and we can.
Well, yeah, that's too bad, because I was thinking that if we ever have bad months around here, we can't meet the payroll, we could just go around and trip some false alarms and get some more income.
I have to say that in a little bit more of a joking manner, Robert, just in case people are not watching the camera.
Well, one thing that says it's a joke is the fact that I don't think we have any full fire alarms in the township, do we? We don't have any boxes. Not that I've ever seen. The fire alarm boxes.
What do you?
Well, no, we don't have that type. No.
So right there,
Well, we have boxes in a way, but they're on buildings. There's one on ours,
They're a lot different than the ones,
Yeah, but it could set up alarm to somebody. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. We know the repeaters, we know who the heck they are, and I think maybe once that one in particular gets a couple of fines, because these fines can they'll probably progress with the more false calls, the more expensive it's going to be. They'll do something about that. I hope. Anyway, that's the whole idea, deterrence.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, it's obviously more of a burden on the commercial properties where there's a lot more know-how that's involved, but definitely it does have a progressive structure. So, that said, how about we schedule a public hearing on this for October 26th at 7 p.m.? That's our regular meeting in October.
I'm fine with that.
Does that work for everybody?
Sure.
Okay.
Will that work for you in advertising?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as, these numbers and everything are okay. And, for example, when we say, the supervisors need to understand that this doesn't kick in until there's a third false alarm. So first false alarm, there's no penalty. A second false alarm, there's no penalty. It also says in a calendar month. Well, you might, a calendar month is different than 30 days. You might want to say 30 days because...
I actually, I spoke to the fire companies about that, and they were concerned that if we said and put 30 days in the ordinance, it would be construed as 30 consecutive days. And the NIFRS reporting system that they use, it's much easier for them if they can say, here are the calls for this property in the month of April.
Okay, well then that makes sense.
So there was discussion on that point though, and that is why that is highlighted as it is.
Okay. Oh yeah, I have some of my notes here as I was looking at this earlier. And then you've got $50 for the penalty. Now I don't know in both of the subsection Bs, when it says an additional $50 per false alarm, does that mean 50 plus 50, or is it just 50 all along, no matter how many alarms? It seems to me that if you're, say, the sixth alarm in a month, that probably should be a little higher than with the third alarm. It would be 50, but that's up to the supervisors to make those calls.
I think 50 is fine. If it gets to be a situation where you have multiple alarms, you can always change it.
Well, yeah, you can always change it. The same thing with the commercial. It's $300 for the third alarm, and then after every alarm after that, it's an additional $100. So it's not 300 plus 100; it's additional 100.
Right.
For alarm 4, 5, 6. So.
And that's for commercial, Ron?
Yeah, that's for commercial. For what I'm seeing here on the resolution that Julia was kind enough to prepare. 300 for commercial.
Okay, great. Do I hear a motion that we schedule our public hearing on this for October 26th at 7 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Barrett, second by Mr. Levenheim. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And the next item up is our noise and nuisance ordinance, and I don't know, Julia, do you want to go first, or shall I have Lynn?
To introduce this briefly, this has been brought up by Lynn Schwartz, who is here at this moment, and this has also been a idea floating around in the wind related to the indoor shooting range. As related to the proposed indoor shooting range amendment for the ED zone. As Ron has already discussed, any current and existing shooting ranges will be subject to whatever ordinances we have in place at first. But this has been something that has been causing some issues, and the public would like for the board to consider starting the research and potentially enacting one. Lynn, I will hand it off to you if you'd like to.
Okay.
Should we invite Lynn up here since she's the only one off camera? So
Sure.
at least everyone watching can see who she is.
Your choice.
I thought no one was watching.
No one is, well, there might well be people on YouTube before or after this, but it's up to you.
Well, I'll stay here. But, well, you know, actually, my thought is when I saw this on the agenda, I thought, well, gee, what are your supervisors' thoughts about a noise in this report? I don't think I've ever actually asked you. Do you think it's warranted?
Oh, I think it's warranted. I think that we've had a multitude of calls. I know not just during my tenure, but during everybody's service. And I think that's, you know, that's one of the reasons it's on the agenda. If, you know, there's been, I probably would say an increase over the last couple of months just because things have slowly started to sort of normalize with the economy. So there's obviously more businesses and things that are having louder things happening since.
Yeah.
So I think that we should definitely look into it. I know that you have some ideas, and I know Julia's looked at some things too. So I think it's something that's necessary because we can't have people that, you know, feel unhappy in a, you know, beyond something that's unreasonable.
Is that you, Robert? Okay, all right. And Brian? I don't know if you can hear me. All right, well, yeah, you know, I was just going to also update on some of the things that were going on, but, you know, the park has been like really kind of I have the park problem, I have the rainbow problem, and there's the saloon problem. And, with the park, is the commission still in existence?
It does exist. We've been trying to recruit members over the years. I think, yeah, that was something we were hoping to really spearhead over the last, you know, year, but given COVID and, you know, fixing zoning and things, that's been something that's not been, you know, thrown out, but something that we need to find more time.
So there's been no meeting?
It's been quite some years.
The last time the park had a meeting?
You're talking about Mount Nebo Park?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about that part. But, because, I don't know, there's, you know.
They're essentially a planning commission for the park, so they would make recommendations. I know for the regional park, that would be the Eastern Monroe Regional Park Commission, but that really hasn't been a thing either. It's been mostly the supervisors from both Middle Smithfield and Smithfield making decisions on the park.
Well, who is the point person in Middle Smithfield?
His name is Christopher Rain.
Oh,
R-A-I-N.
R-I-N.
Yeah, I can email you his contact information.
I didn't realize there was noise coming from the park. Is it?
Well, the ATVs.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
the ATVs.
Which are illegal in the park.
They're illegal, and, they're coming through that animal tunnel. I think I emailed about that.
Yeah.
And that is PennDOT proper.
Where the power lines are, that
Where
area?
the tunnel is.
The animal crossings under 209 and.
So they go into the PennDOT property or come from it, which is?
Well, I guess either way, they're coming through the
I think
tunnel.
it's actually they go through it.
They go through the tunnel. Now, I'm just wondering, why is PennDOT, maybe they're not even aware of it. I just, who's I don't think they have the responsibility because they own that piece of property. And it's being used as sport animals.
Right.
To, you know, use that tunnel.
Right, ultimately, it would be PennDOT that would have to curtail that, at least on their property. So we wouldn't be able to do anything without their permission ourselves.
So then, where does it stand? I mean, is it up to me to contact PennDOT and tell them of what's going on, or,
I think it's up to us, because it's more complicated than that. They own some of those parcels, and some of those parcels they own in some kind of arrangement, I think with Fish and Game or with other agencies that protect animals.
Mhm.
So if they're not living up to their requirements under those contracts, they're at fault with their partners. So it gets kind of complicated.
It seems like there's a lot going on, you know, with this whole these problems of it.
Right. And
because actually I did go to the section and I got a map of the property and, you know, who owns how it seems, and it seems like they're coming up J Park and through, or they could be also coming up by where the dollar store is now, where White Beach is.
the Dollar Tree.
A lot of them.
Well, they have to be on that side of the creek, so they're probably around Dollar Tree. Because if they came from J Park, they'd have to cross the creek. I don't know if they do that.
All right. Well, the pastor of the church there at J Park said that they had found some beer alcohol bottles there behind the church. So I was thinking that they were, you know.
Could be.
But it seems like, well, it also seems like so all right, the PennDOT owns part of the property, that where the tunnel is, and then it's going up through the Vanda property, and then up into the park property. And, Alan, my husband, put security signs on the Vanda property.
Mhm.
And it said there's 24/7 video surveillance. That's what the signs say. But truthfully.
I wouldn't make the rest of what you're about to say known on a public meeting.
Okay, all right, okay. So, I do have a camera.
Okay.
So, all right, I was wondering if I could put the same sign up at the entrance, or is that not allowed?
Which entrance?
To Mountain Eagle Park,
We have signs there. And we still have signs there now.
but not, like this says video
Oh.
surveillance, like 24-hour video.
Uh-huh.
Brian again. Can I just say something? Over the years, this has been a problem since we dedicated that park at Mount Nebo. Initially, when we had the scouts there, it was busy on weekends, and there were adults there, and it seemed to curtail the ATV activities for at least for a while, maybe a couple of years while the scouts were really active. And then it became a cat and mouse. We'd block off a trail. We knew ATVs were using. They'd either come in with their chainsaws and cut it up or drive around it, knock down trees to get around it. So it's been going on for I don't know how long, and I don't know the ideal solution to it. Truthfully, I just don't know what could be done, except to disencourage it by making it almost impossible to get to our parks. And that would take some effort and thought, but I think maybe that's the way we should approach this problem. And I do know this: these people also they've been seen to be coming from other areas, and part of that was down by the creek. They would follow that creek and then look to see that they could get through the tunnel and then come up that way. But the other end of that is just being on the other side of the bypass and looking for a spot to get through.
The other area where it's easy to get in there is from the power line clearing, because it comes right up into the park at the back of the long trail around the back of Mount Nebo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and Robert, the old cost property, that was notorious because for a good amount of time, there was nobody living in that particular
Yeah.
area. And geez, all they had to do was pull off, the dirt road that takes you into it. It's ideal. You park your car, unload, and boom, you're up in Mount Nebo Park. And that's where they started cutting trees down. Not the trees that you want cut down, Robert, but they were cutting trees just to get around the blockades. I think maybe we talked to Middle and Chris and our two roadmasters to see how they feel about what the best.
Right, because I know that I know in the past they had looked at boulders, but maybe that's something that's possible now. We just can't hinder the accessibility of the trails, so there might be a certain size or, I don't know, some sort of mechanism to do that. But we can ask, our colleagues in Middle Smithfield as well, their roadmaster, Corey and Chris, to see what, if they had any thoughts or if they've been getting any similar complaints, just to see what they've been thinking of.
Did you say, I think boulders are a great idea. Did you say it was a good idea or it wasn't?
Oh, I don't have any position on, if we can have boulders that say we're something that would prevent an ATV but not prevent a wheelchair or stroller or something.
Well, if you put boulders by the animal tunnel, that's not meant for humans to touch, so.
Right, well, that would have to be us conferring with PennDOT, because we wouldn't be able to do that without them saying it would be okay.
Yeah.
That would be probably the first step, with at least for that spot.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's one of the issues at the park. I did, Labor Day, that Monday, I went to the park. I was hearing a lot of noise in the park, and I thought it was the ATV, but apparently, there might have been ATVs in there, but, the traffic on, 209 is really coming through, like, Labor Day, there were motorcycles and cars, and it's really coming up through our area. But at any rate, so I went to the park because I thought, I thought the ATVs were in there. But I'm walking down towards the lake. Well, number one, some people left some empty alcohol bottles there. To do that, the entrance. And at the lake, there were a bunch of people blasting a radio, and some of them were smoking. It looked like a guy was grilling there. So, these are just some of the things that, are happening in the park. So, and I've been working with Noreen on this, and she had a suggestion, which I think is good, that possibly we should have a meeting with, our supervisors and Middle Smithfield about the park, and just have a meeting about that. And we could come up, Noreen and I could come up with, like, an agenda of the.
Fine. That's gonna take some time to get that going, but I think we should probably see what they've been looking at so far, and then take that, and then see if a joint session is necessary. I don't even know, Ron, what are the rules about, two municipalities having their respective boards both with a quorum meeting together?
Well, they certainly can do that as long as it's, fully advertised.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that, and having that joint meeting,
Because it's more or less a listening session. They can't, we can't mutually decide anything. It's a mutual.
Discussing something.
Right.
Talking about it, and that's really hard to not do.
Oh, sure.
Even at a very basic meeting, but if it's simply a fact-finding mission where the supervisors are just gonna sit there and they're just gonna hear what's being told to them, and they're not gonna discuss it, they're not gonna deliberate it, et cetera, then you don't need to advertise.
Well, I think it should probably just, if we do take that route, but I'm not quite ready.
I think you can still advertise,
Yeah.
as they always say, in the abundance of caution.
Right.
Say.
It's always better to, do that than get burned, but I think we should see where they're at and,
Now,
talk with,
you should know that Upper Mount Bethel has a 16-page noise ordinance that was adopted back in 1996. Now, I've been there 23 years. They've used the ordinance once.
Wow.
Because the court just killed them and said, we're talking about noise. Noise can be anywhere, just like you see a star a million miles away. And your ordinance says it's got to be more than so many decibels for 2 hours. Did someone stand at the property line for 2 hours and measure? And by the way, what are you measuring with? Is that an approved decibel reading machine that you have? There's a lot of stuff that a judge, if he or she wants to frustrate a town or borough from pursuing these things, can do that.
Sure.
Because there just isn't any rules out there. It's not like a speeding violation where you have a radar gun, it gets tested by a certain organization that's approved by the state, has to be done within 60 days. We don't have any of that here.
Right.
And, but the ordinance is very thorough, so I can share it with the board if it would like to do that. It talks about all kinds of things, including discharge of firearms. So,
wow, that's pretty depressing to hear that.
it is.
So if you cite someone with the noise ordinance, and are you saying if they cite it, the judge normally throws it
I
out?
can't say normally throws it out, but the one experience Upper Mount Bethel had was it was very difficult. Because again, there wasn't enough indicia of credibility as to what's occurring. In other words, like the decibel meter, who made it? How do we know that that's the right decibel meter? What about company B? What about company C? There's no rules out there with this. Like again, in a radar gun, there's special companies that are approved by the state that say this is who's going to make these guns and this is who is going to test them. There's no such thing like that for that. And then again, the ordinance has to say, if it travels beyond the boundaries of this property, well, then you have to have someone at that boundary doing that testing, and not just for a second. It depends on what the ordinance says. Like, again, I'm looking at the ordinance here, they're talking about 85 decibels for four hours. Well, then someone's got to be at that property line for 4 hours with that machine, making sure you're over that.
Well,
it becomes a difficult enforcement issue.
well, that's almost ridiculous.
I understand
In
that.
a way, then it seems like it's not enforceable.
No.
I think to some extent there are some extremes to where it probably isn't. But I think, the least we can do is some sort of mitigation attempt on the ATVs. That park is already carry in, carry out, so we usually don't have a lot of trash or anything after that. There was one recent exception, but even then, in comparison to where some people have left other parks, it wasn't too bad. But we're getting more signs made for the parks right around here too, in relation to, don't climb on the fence or something, you'll get hurt, or don't, you're not allowed to have alcohol or ATVs pursuant to, X section of our ordinances.
Well, how is it going with mini places? Haven't you been hiring someone to,
Not the whole summer, but we have not had any major incidents at Minnesink, this summer, and the same for River's Edge. There's been some minor stuff, but they've all, been thrown out or cautioned by the guards anyway, on the instances they were there. It really seems to be that this is the spot for ATVs. We haven't had that issue in any of the other parks.
Well, actually, Jacob, we did. We had major issues at Mini, and if you remember, it was just last year or the year before, ATVs went in there and ripped up the small park on the other side of the tracks, and just what happened was, fortunately, somebody, it's open enough at Mini, both sides of the tracks, that people can be identified and seen. And when I say that is, one resident followed them and reported back to us, and maybe this is 3-4 years ago now. So we went down and confronted them, and that was the end of the problem. They used to take the air and let the air out of the tires so they could drive the railroad tracks on their ATVs, so that they could get into the park and maybe not be noticed. But that was should be a case where we were fortunate enough to ID these people, and a couple of them lived very close to the park. So I don't want to go any further, but that was rectified. Knock on wood so far. But we spent $2,000 repairing that awful mess that you guys remember. It was just a couple of years ago.
Right.
And the state police were there. There was a criminal report filed. They took pictures. They gathered evidence, and they knocked on doors. And I think when they started to knock on doors, and especially if they saw ATVs in the yard or in the garage, that they'd knock on that door and very politely say, "Listen, we're doing an investigation, and we're just looking into it," and do their job. And I think that in itself is a deterrent. We see the state police respond. In our case up at Mount Nebo, you can get in there a lot of different ways. The property behind the lake, the dam, actually. You can get in there, and that's right off of Mount Nebo Road. You just park, unload, get the car out of the way or the truck out of the way, and you're in. So.
Okay, now I have a problem hearing everything Brian's saying. What did he say about, how did they find those ATVs? They knocked on the door?
He was saying that the state police, when they were canvassing the area, that they would especially talk to folks that had ATVs in their yard. So, they went around that area.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know of two houses that have ATVs. I've seen that right around the park.
Well, this was triggered by a crime. This was actually a reported crime, so it gave the state police.
That's the difference.
You betcha. Yeah.
He's saying that we reported the crime because someone had vandalized our field.
Oh, I see.
So that's what got the state police. They're not gonna, since there is no.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
No crime beyond violating our ordinance. Since there's no physical harm, they don't typically. State police. It's not in their job description to enforce local ordinances. They can only enforce that. So everything else would be up to zoning or some sort of other matter that we would have to bring.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, with the park.
Well, our hope is to get that information from Middle Smithfield, and be happy to share that with you as soon as we do. And then, as for the ordinance and whatnot, probably in the next couple of months, once we get through the technical side of our zoning stuff, then we'll be able to dedicate more time, because it's in a number of areas in the township, people have complained about different noises or things. So it's definitely something that we are interested in drafting and then holding some hearings on.
Okay, all right. So I guess that's thank you.
Hey, always. We appreciate your dedication.
I know what I was going to suggest. Do you ever think about a drone?
Can I, Jacob?
Sure.
There's a gentleman sitting to your left that may. I don't know. Did you ever get your license, Robert?
I haven't. I could. I took the course.
Again, a drone, and that would give you the idea, especially in this day and age. Maybe that's a suggestion. I don't know. They have services that you can hire out, and for particular days, especially weekends. Or we develop our own drone pilot.
I think that would also that would be something that, as Ron has talked about, with the decibel readers and stuff, that legality would have to be examined and strict.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, also FCC regulations on that, but yeah, we can, or not FCC, FAA, and maybe some FCC, because some people are, my brother's got a drone for Christmas the one year, and they had to, go fill out, get a permit online and everything too. Yeah.
Well, if you had a drone and you could identify people, I mean, could you go and actually?
Well, see that?
Then you don't know.
Those types of drones, they cost a lot more than the $500 ones, which are like ostensibly the ones that people like YouTubers or whatever record for. I mean, we could always look into it. There's never any harm in looking into something, but
I think the shame is that we don't have anybody that we could go to investigate this, because I have a feeling that there's probably a small group of people who do this. And if we had somebody, like for instance, we had police, or not police, but let's say guards of some sort in mini-sink to discourage people going down and picnic and swim in the Broadhead. If we had something like that where they could go in and when there was a complaint, just investigate. I just feel that there's probably a group who does this.
It's the same group. That, sometimes it is during the day, but this one group has been coming in the evening, like late at night. But, they spray painted the trees.
No, where?
I don't know if it's that's another thing. It's really difficult to see where the park property ends sometimes and where the private property starts.
Right, well, there's not exactly any fences, you're right.
But at any rate, if you're on it's the longer trail, well, actually, it's like right, going by, our house and the Smith house, and the Vander property is all, that land. That's where they spray painted the trees yellow, so when they're, riding at night, they can see the route back. And that's how I knew that they're coming through the tunnel too, because it leads right to the tunnel.
Huh.
So.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Go out and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Is that what's the Ash Lane? What's the name of the lane there? Crosses.
Wait, let's say that again?
It's down below Rainbow. Isn't there a lane that goes in there? A street?
Well, we live on 8th Lane.
Case, yeah. That's what I mean.
But, they can't really access it from, I guess they could access it from.
I've walked out to Ace Lane from the park, so I know there's.
Someone did donate, some land to the park that is going.
Is that where they're coming from, or is it further?
I don't think so. Well, I don't think so. I don't think they're going through that way. Through the tunnel, I guess they, right from the downhill road,
I'll take a hike and take a look.
Yeah.
There, and the tunnel is, if you follow the creek out of the dam at the lake, that goes right down to the tunnel, doesn't it? That creek?
Yeah, it does. But you can't really walk that. That's tough. My husband and I did walk down there. Well, not the way, but on the path. And wow, that was a rough walk for us.
Right.
But I don't know. Did you want to hear anything about Rainbow?
Sure. Yeah, we could take a couple more minutes for that. And then we'll probably go on to the fire company.
All right. So, Rainbow got one citation, and then they were supposed to get a second citation. First citation was one. Second citation was supposedly a fine. I haven't confirmed that, but I was told that they were going to get a second one. And the saloon got a citation.
Oh, okay.
So, but I guess my question is, does anybody talk to the owners or managers of these places that are causing problems also?
I know that our zoning officer has sent in enforcement notices and has communicated quite frequently with the saloon, especially after they changed ownership.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, with, regard to Rainbow Mountain, it's been, the Liquor Control Board that's been able to handle that. But when it's stuff like lighting and other things that are, more enforceable in our ordinances, and Ken's been in constant contact with these groups.
So, I mean, as far as the noise coming from those places, I mean, you don't get involved with that, the township does not get involved in that?
We don't have any mechanism to enforce it at the moment.
Oh, but I mean, they can talk to them about it?
He can talk to them and say, please, turn down your music, and he's done things like that before, but, there's no legal mechanism at present, which is why we want to develop the noise ordinance.
Yeah.
I would recommend that we look around towards perhaps hiring an acoustical engineering expert, just as a person that could come in here for a limited time on some kind of a, what would we call it? Honorarium or something, I don't know.
Robert, we did do that years ago. Again, it was about that facility, up on Saw Creek, I think, on the top. And what happened was that he was good. He was professional. He had a degree, I believe, in engineering, sound related. And what he said is exactly what Ron had said earlier. He said, you're in a course, and you better be good. You better have top-notch equipment, and you've got to be not just somebody like me or you out there doing it, standing on the property line saying that, oh, yeah, it's loud here, and it has been. He's going to be questioned. He's got to be an expert, is what I'm saying. But they're out there, and they're willing to do it. But, boy,
what I'm thinking, Brian, is maybe there are things that can be done that we can insist upon. For instance, let's take the saloon in Marshall's Creek. Is there baffling that could be erected on the street side of that would shelter, let's say, the noise that's going up towards where Lynn lives? And we've got the problem of gunshots in another area. And what we seem to learn from the last session, joint session, was that indoor or outdoor is not the problem. The problem is baffling the noise. I just wonder if there are ways to do this, or ways we can insist upon where we're saying it's not about decibels. It's about you've got to put this up if you want to continue, because this is going to be some sort of a noise barrier that won't allow your noise to go in an area where people are disturbed by it. It's really not that different than what goes on an interstate where they put up noise barriers for neighborhoods, and I'm sure those are done by sound experts too, so that on the other side of it you don't hear anything. I don't know, but it just seems like, well, maybe that's a way to look at it rather than enforcing decibel levels and things like that.
Okay.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not a supervisor, so I'm not gonna support or not support that, but I think that's an excellent idea. Get someone in here who's a noise or sound expert and say, we have this issue in the township with noise, have you dealt with it before? I'm sure they have, this can't be the first time that someone's dealing with, have you dealt with this before? What do you recommend we do? Whether by ordinance, whether it be by construction, whether it be by something else. And if you gotta pay the guy $1,000 to come in and tell you, or a gal to come in and tell you that, well, money well spent. Money well spent.
That said, I think we should consider moving on now to our other items. But I think, Ron, if you could look into what we could do on things that are existing problems that we don't have an ordinance that covers. So I know that we can always change things for the future, but I think the question is primarily what's going wrong right now.
Yes,
so
I will follow up on that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, what goes on right now is ATVs, rock and roll, and gunshots.
You got yourself a nice album title. Okay. Well, thank you very much for all the information.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we will definitely be in touch.
Okay, continue on.
Our next item is discussing Marshall's Creek Fire Company tire request, for us to pay for the tires, or more or less actually not seek reimbursement for tires to the amount of $3,410.92. I don't think I have the email in front of me, but I don't know, Julia, you have your computer, maybe you have the email from Lynn about that.
I am having problems connecting to the internet, so
Okay.
I do not have access at this
Thank
time.
you for coming.
Well, thank you.
Talk soon.
Contact.
Definitely.
Okay.
Do my best to Al.
Bye-bye.
But Marshall's Creek Fire Company has requested, that the township cover this amount for the tires for their vehicles like we did before.
Well, if we've done it in the past, it seems like it's reasonable, we should continue to do it.
Yeah, that's right, because it said, Lynn said to us in 2020 we did pay for both fire companies' tires. I mean, I think it's the least we can do right now. We have the American Rescue Plan money to figure out these things later on, but I think that it doesn't hurt to pay for the tires. I don't know what the rest of you guys think.
I'll make a motion that but are we reimbursing or are we, whatever we're doing for the tires? What is it?
Right. Well, first, before you vote on it, or before you make the motion, because of the new rules of Act 65, we have to move to add voting on things to the agenda. If it wasn't previously put there 24 hours in advance.
I see it.
So if you do want to make a motion, or if we do want to vote on whether or not to pay for them, you have to now make a motion to add this item as a voting item.
I'll make that motion. Add it.
Okay. I'll second. Any questions or debate? All in favor of the motion to add, considering paying for these? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So now we can vote on that, but before we do that, does anybody have any discussion or thoughts on that?
Well, I just think common knowledge, and it should be common knowledge, this is a public meeting, because we have at least one other fire company, that's Shawnee we work with. And I think, Jacob, you referred to Delaware Water Gap. And,
right.
So, just get the word out that we did do that for them. And we could say that's, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on this item now.
I'll make the motion to, are we buying the tires or reimbursing?
That would be the motion.
Okay, to buy the tires, the price was $3,410.92 for Marshall's Creek Fire Company.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Motion by Mr. Levenheim and second by Mr. Barrett. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Our next item is discussing Roth property update. Julia sent an email to us about this. I think it's just going over it and also getting Ron's feedback on it too. So, whichever one of you wants to start.
Well, let me just start, and that's not to take away Julia's thunder. She can certainly jump right in if she needs to. But in looking at the email, the concern for, and let me take my mask down just so. Current concern that Robert had was that this change may well, not Robert, really Brian, I guess. Brian's concern was that this change may well increase the real estate taxes for Ms. Roth, because she has a property as residential property for so long, and now it's been converted into the economic development district property, and that it might be unfair to her. According to this email that Julia prepared, that's not the case. That there really will not be any great increase in property taxes because of the ED district, what increased the property taxes was the county reassessment of property, which, we had no control over. If you look at the attached sheet,
Right.
2018 and 2019, the first tax, I'll call it, in the beginning of the year was about $500, and the school tax was around $2,900.
Right.
After reassessment, now that first tax is around $690, and the school tax is around $4,800.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the zone. So,
Right.
well, in answering that question, it appears that it will not create any increase in taxes or any significant increase in taxes for her, so that the question becomes, does she still want to proceed with the zoning amendment? I mean, if she wants to, she can, but I don't think this board should be paying me to do the petition.
Well, my feeling is because it's really a question of whether or not it would lower the taxes, and, it's probably not fair to begin with, but the reality is, even changing this back to resort conservation like it was, or I guess was supposed to be, wouldn't change anything.
I did speak with Cindy Tribal over the phone, and after my discussion with her, that is what I understood her to say, yes.
So, I mean, if there's
I also talked to Cindy, Julia, and again, when I first brought this up, it really just felt to me that this was the result of the reassessment and nothing else. Smithfield Township, and the only thing I guess we could possibly even do is forgive her taxes. I don't know what kind of precedent that sets, but dear God, when you look at all the other taxes that are really going to affect her, that's not going to change unless she goes and hires a damn good lawyer and schedules a reassessment meeting with the particular board at Cindy's office, and then pleads that they decreased it.
And she even did that once, Brian. The land had been reassessed the first time for $330,000, just the land, not the building. She appealed that, and she was able to get that down to $108,000. So she got it down almost 3 times less than what it was initially done. I don't think she's going to be able to do any better, but that's up to her. But that's not the township's responsibility. So
right, and I agree with that. So I guess my question is now, do we have to have a public hearing, or can we just not?
She hasn't filed anything yet. She may have made a request, but she has to have a petition filed. She has to give us a copy of the ordinance that she wants adopted. Then we have to make sure we have the money for the hearing so I can advertise it. Then it's got to be reviewed by Planning Commission here and Monroe County Planning Commission. Then there has to be a public hearing.
So as it stands, if we don't have, because I know they filed that one application, and you said there was no deadline, so there's no question of a deemed approval.
This is a legislative enactment.
So we don't have to choose, we don't have to vote on hearing it or not hearing it. We can just move on.
Well, you can vote on, and Julie's going to jump in here in a moment, vote on saying you have to do this additional work for us to be able to process it. But go ahead, Julie.
How about, can I say again, why don't we just talk to Allison Rhodes? She works for Spank Smith's office, and she's the woman that came in with it and really felt it, and asked us if we could help this woman in any way we could. If she realizes, and I don't think she's totally comprehends what's going on here and Ron, what you're saying, and maybe just say, look at it. The fact of the matter is, you've gone through the appeal process. You did okay. You want to go back and do it again. It's up to you to do that. But maybe you don't want to spend this extra money in vain. And
I think that's reasonable. And my feeling is we should take the attitude of whatever makes you happy. It's not going to change your taxes. We found that out. Here's what it is. If you still want to go ahead with this, here's what you're going to have to face. We would certainly look favorably on it if you want to spend the money and go through this, but just realize that it's not going to affect your taxes at all.
And I think Allison knows that Julia would relay that to her. I mean, that's...
you were gonna say something, Julie, I don't wanna cut you off.
I wanted, for my own clarification, based on what you said then, is it then correct to state that Ms. Roth has not filed a complete application for her hearing request?
She has not. She has not filed a complete application, in my opinion. Again, she would need, not only the request for the hearing, she needs to have a petition to change the zoning, and then she has to do a proposed zoning amendment. If you recall, let's just go back for a little bit, when Mr. Vogt proposed a change for, I'm not sure if it was the resort area or something, Robert maybe.
Oh, the definition of a dwelling.
All right, definition of a dwelling, whatever, he filed a petition, and it doesn't have to be a formal petition by way of, soup and nuts like a lawyer, but some letter, something saying, I'm filing a petition, I want this matter reviewed, the basis for our review, and then she's got to propose a proposed ordinance. And at that point, then, assuming that she has paid the money for the hearing, now her application is complete and the board can act on it. But again, she's not challenging the zoning ordinance, this is not a water gap case, okay? She's not saying that the ordinance is jurisdictionally infirm or something, that's the landowner's case.
Right.
She's basically just saying, tell me if you will change the zoning ordinance for me, and that's completely legislative, non-appealable, and, you don't have any time limit to act on that if you don't want to.
The only thing I argue for here is saying, let's do it in a positive way, because we're trying to say, we're trying to help you. If you really want to do this, fine.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it doesn't seem to be anything that's going to benefit you.
I agree, I think that makes good State Department sense, if you will, and yeah, do it that way.
Sounds
But right
good.
now, I would say that her application's not complete, so it's been rejected, so she doesn't later try to say, oh, well, it was complete, you just, ignored me, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that sounds fair then.
And I have an email, I think, that I detailed what needed to be done. That email, assuming there's no confidential information in it, has to be copied and sent right to her too, final thing.
Sure. Okay.
Good. And maybe
Well,
call Alice and give her a heads up.
Yeah, we'll be in touch with her.
Yeah, okay.
Next up is discussing and scheduling budget meetings. It's that time now. I guess I'll ask Julia, I don't know if you, cause I don't remember if I asked this directly. I think it was just one of the things I said, oh yeah, we could put it on, so I don't have any dates in mind. I guess so, if you had something.
We have not come up with any dates at this time.
So do you want us to vote on scheduling them today, or do you need us to just start to, or just email you our availability? I mean, they're obviously public meetings, but you need us to obviously decide when we're available.
Mid-October, maybe, we start it.
Yeah, feasibly speaking, if you want to check your calendar, we can decide the date for the first October meeting, and have plenty of time to get them in the paper and, prepare for the fun that is budgeting.
Okay.
Julia, did we have any problems with the schedules we used over the last several years? I mean, for instance, last year, we were all on board. We had our meetings, they were advertised, they were public meetings, and we got our budget done. Is that the kind of a thing you're looking for, maybe to begin in whenever?
Feasibly, yes. So last year, you started your budget sessions on Wednesday, October 14th at 10 a.m., and you had them for the next 2 weeks at 10 a.m., so 3 budget sessions at 10 a.m., and then your fourth was Wednesday, November 4th at 1 p.m., and the reason that one was moved was because there was a DCNR virtual workshop in the morning.
Oh, that's right.
So feasibly, if schedules allow, we could plan for, October 13th,
Yeah.
20th, 27th, and November 3rd at 10 a.m., if that works for the board.
I think that probably makes the most sense. I think the fourth one should probably be like an as-needed thing, but I think that at least those 3, it'll be nice to have them on those Wednesdays, because I don't want to take everybody away. I mean, because we're already doing regular business those weeks for the most part anyway, and I don't want to make any people that should be focusing on budgeting, I don't want them to down in something else. That way we can kind of decouple them from our regular meetings.
Yeah, and Julia, isn't there a 20-day or something that we have to get it into a situation where it's pretty much wrapped up within so many days of a drop dead?
Yeah, once the budget is complete, it needs to sit for a period of time for public comment before you are allowed to pass it.
That's right, it is 20 days, yeah.
Yeah, 20 days.
It's for public inspection, I remember those words. So,
well,
if we know, I mean, what do we think about the dates that Julia just threw out at us at 10 a.m.?
Jacob can ask if Julia would just send an email out with those dates, and then all involved can just respond. I'm looking at my calendar now, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I think it's fine if we want to wait, like you're saying, Brian.
Yeah, just like a message that goes out, Julia, when you get the time to get it out, like maybe tonight. I don't know, but you could get it out, and we'll look at it, mark our calendars, make sure there's no conflicts, and then we go, because it sounded good the way you laid it out.
10-4.
That sounds good to me. Okay. And the next thing we have is Mount Nebo Park maintenance. I think I don't have anything on that one, so. Was that just you, Robert, wanting to talk about the pictures you sent us, or?
Yeah, and I think we have two issues. One is, which Julie and I have already discussed by emails, is just knowing what's being done, which seems to fall into some sort of vague category. Sometimes it has been fixed, has it not, has it cleaned up, has it not, so forth. And the other thing, I think, in the long run, which is it's probably something we should discuss in the budget meetings, is do we need more trash receptacles and more dedicated to the labor of keeping them up and emptying them? The only place I think we have those bare receptacles is down here in Waterfront, right?
Yeah, Waterfront and Menacing.
Menacing has them.
Do they have a bare one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But at least the one up here, I think gets used a lot until it gets filled up. I just think we need more of those, and with it comes labor to keep cleaning them out. And it's as simple as that. If you don't have them, people just leave things around. A lot will anyway, but a lot of people will put it in the trash receptacle if it's there, and if it's got room in it.
Well, Robert, you sent a good informative message about the condition of even the small wooden bridge that seems to be falling apart.
Which looks like it's partially destroyed by ATVs rather, what I'm saying.
ATVs, yeah. ATVs. No, I totally agree with it. I think really we sit down with and again talk about the ATMs themselves, ATVs themselves. Let's get a discussion going.
So that should be part of our budget discussions.
Well, I personally
for the most part, yeah.
Replaced with Chase ATMs, because I think we're chasing the end of this meeting now.
Yeah.
But very good. Yeah, I had to get in my chance there. But yeah, those are all good points that you both brought up. I think that definitely during budgeting and the times after we can talk about that. Fortunately, a lot of it is going to be taken care of.
Thank you. All right. Am I here? Hello? I lost it. Pay the bills. No. Hello? Hello?